All right, click the links. Join channel, become a member of various other video platforms, support channel, and subscribe star. So this quick video, it's mainly just to crush any optimistic. We have a cautiously optimistic, a return to normalcy. No. Let me just crush all those hopes right here and now. This film didn't get canceled. Batgirl didn't get canceled because it was too woke. It was too bad for a lot of other reasons. But Zaslav is not gonna. He's not anti-woke. He's not gonna make non-woke movies. You're never gonna see good movies. That whole era of Hollywood's always been woke. And the thing is, once you kind of put on the They Live glasses, you realize like, oh, you can't take them off. And it's not like you want to take the blue pill or anything to go back in the Matrix. But you realize as you go further and further back in film history, you start looking at all these earlier movies because they were doing this anti-blonde stuff further and further back. Like, it's just been a problem, this hatred in Hollywood for a long time. It's like people just let it slide. But now with social media and alt social media, people start to notice these patterns and come together and go like, why would this hatred be acceptable just because it's against one group of people? So no, he's not anti-woke, and he's not gonna don't any optimism. Hollywood's over for you. I was walking the dog last night. I was thinking like, I don't want to see any new Hollywood movies at all, period. And in fact, I haven't wanted to see any Hollywood movies in a couple of years. The only reason I watch some of the superhero stuff is to talk about them because they're in the cultural matrix. But no, there's no part of me, because I know Hollywood is over. Like, there's no hope of, there might be a good movie here and there. Not at the big budget mainstream, the big producers you've heard of. No, absolutely not. That's all over. Everything's going to be what you've seen in the past few years. Everything's going to be race and sex swapped. So there's no part of me that like, a streaming service. Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, even if they weren't such weirdos with like the Epstein's Island type of stuff, like I wouldn't subscribe. I have some of those for free, and I was thinking about it. Like, I haven't turned those on to watch something in years, and there's no part of me that's excited to think about, I'll find some show. Partially because I look at the Epstein's Island stuff is a big part of it. You look at the people who are in the industry, and you're like, these are really deeply sick people. But also because the shows everything is going to be blonde person bad. It's going to be the mainstream. That's going to be the underlying theme narrative. Once you see that, like once you notice these coincidences, you're like, this is in every single thing. I don't want to see any of it. If you have to watch movies, man, there's no shortage of old stuff to watch on Odyssey, Bit Chute, and various other platforms. So people on Twitter were spurging out because Batgirl is a POC chick, which I guess is a WOC chick, and the two guys who are directing it are also some sort of vaguely POCs. And the people on Twitter goes, that's why they canceled it. Like, what's the color of the sky in your world where you think woke Hollywood is canceled? Like, they made the movie, they put $100 million into it, knowing that she's a POC actor and the directors are POCs. So they put that money into it, and the only reason they canceled it is because do they even hear their argument? None of that makes sense. Why wouldn't it just be cheaper not to make the movie in the first place and save that $100 million? Or just make it with a Batgirl, make it with a red-haired, Irish girl or something to play Batgirl. Like, wouldn't that have made more sense to seek a high return on the investment? It's not about money. If any of these shows were about money, you wouldn't see The Wheel of Time. How did that show? It got woke. It got all diverse, and everyone looks like they're from different tribes around the world. So how well did Wheel of Time do? When you look up the Rotten Tomatoes reviews on Wheel of Time, the first 50 reviews, and these aren't just stars. They give an explanation. They say something below it to talk about the movie. They're not bots. They're independent people. They're all 1 stars. All the first 50 reviews were explaining how bad this was and how it was a departure from the book. And they didn't come out and say woke. They just said it was bad and it wasn't the book. It's like, so if you were closer to the book, you wouldn't be woke. Characters would look like they belong together. It's like, so Wheel of Time, to complete horrible show. So when Lord of the Rings comes out, they know, here's the thing, the artists, the writers, they're not really thinking of if it's going to be a success or not, because they're in this deep echo chamber about girl power and representation, all this kind of nonsense. But the people who are funding this, the money people, look at this, they know it's not going to be a success. There's no way Rings of Power is going to be a financial success. There's nobody who's familiar with the money that thinks that is they're good odds that to happen. it's a very long shot that it would catch fire with an audience. It's going to be like, oh, we lost $500 million on Rings of Power. Oh, wow, who saw that coming? Well, everyone who's familiar with the number side of the industry saw that coming. So why'd they go ahead and do it? Why would Amazon lose $500 million? That, I mean, this is going to come out in 2 years, and you'd be like, oh yeah, they lost $500 million on that, if not more. I mean, they knew the probability of that was high because it's a religion to them. If they made Rings of Power and they made it look like the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, it would have been a pretty solid hit, and it would have returned their investment. They're willing to forego hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, to spread this bizarro propaganda. Once you understand that they're willing to burn money, you realize, oh, it really is a religion to them. This whole globalism, Bolshevik, Marxism, these are just kind of words interchangeably. Yeah, it's as much a religion to them, a matter of faith, as anything else. They're willing to burn money to spread this message. So, no optimism. I heard a few minutes of Yellow Flash and Sci-Fi for Me TV. The guy does a live stream. He actually does a really good live stream every morning. He's kind of a hidden gem because he's a really small channel. There's like 10 people on the live stream. But he does this really precise and succinct update of where pop culture is in like 1 hour. If you want to listen to it in the background, I kind of feel like that's one of the channels that's probably going to catch on if you need like just a concise update. So these people were cautiously optimistic, and I heard that. I heard Yellow Flash, and I'm like, no, he must be young. Maybe he's younger or something to be somewhat optimistic. He goes, I like the direction that Zaslav is going. I'm like, oh, dude, no, you just become a pessimist. Just lean into pessimism, accelerate into pessimism. There's no way. So Zaslav is going, he's got a rollout plan like Marvel and DC or Disney have got for continuity in films, and they all have to work together. That's what he said. It's still going to be woke, race-swapped cancer. He didn't say anything about that. So Hollywood is over for you, for me, for people like us, to the point of you can make your own micro-budget film. I don't know if I mean you personally, if you've got a few hundreds of thousands of millions or $1 million to get together to make a micro-budget film, then no, it's not going to compete with Disney and DC, but those movies aren't worth watching anymore. Every once in a while, yeah, they come out with Batman and Spider-Man. I get that. Those two movies hit $1 billion, but man, there are a lot more bombs and misses than those two big hits. So no, movies are not going to return to normal. Like, you think you're going to see like films from the 70s? Oh, back when movies were good? Oh, well, racist bigots said what? Yeah, 77, 78, 79, Star Wars, Star Trek, and Superman. Yeah, those are just fun, simple movies. Anyway, everything's going to be race swapped. Every character but the main one. They will hold that off for a while, and eventually they'll do that too. It's like, if you replace every part of something, is it the same thing? No, it's not. I mean, you could fool some of the cattle, which, went and saw Spider-Man and Batman, and they applauded and cheered like just the soylent sheep that they are. The woke commie window has shifted so far left that people are willing to accept a lot of this woke cancer, but just because it's not all the way woke. It's still blonde person bad. When I say that, I keep repeating that because I want like people to keep that in the back of their mind. Protagonist, antagonist, notice the hair color, or like with the perceived ethnicity, because actors play roles and stuff and they dye people's hair. Notice the perceived ethnicity of the bad guy, the antagonist. How many times they're portrayed as blonde-haired or red-haired, green-eyed, or blue-eyed. And once you notice that connection, you'll be done with Hollywood too, because you realize like, oh, we found the real racists. They were the left wing on the whole time. Like, we're trying to say, people have been jokingly saying that, like, no, we're not joking. We say the left wing. Yeah, they're the real racists. No. Literally. People on the right are politically incorrect. People on the left are hardcore hatred, burning incandescent hatred in their hearts. There's a big difference. And like, people, once you see that, you go, oh, these are vile, evil, like biblically evil, ontologically evil people. So no, you don't have to accept the gaslighting about, well, it's just for inclusion and representation. It's like, I don't want to see that. Oh, well, we found the racist. Oh, fine, whatever. I mean, you guys call that, you call everybody that. David Zaslav, I guarantee he's more on the globalist side than anything else. Someone said like, oh, he vaguely complimented Trump sometime. It's like, yeah, he made some vague compliment to Trump. It's like, you're not going to, if you think his movies are going to turn around, no, I can absolutely guarantee. Yes, let me predict now that his stuff is going to be more of the same Bolshevik propaganda. He wants it to look good, and the reason Batgirl didn't test well with the audience is the audience says it looked like a cheap, low budget movie. It looked like a CW show, which Batwoman. If you ever saw that show, holy cow! Thorius Unlimited does reviews of Batwoman. They're a treasure to watch, and you can watch the original show yourself. If you can get through a whole episode, I'd be surprised. It's that bad, and no exaggeration. This Bolshevik propaganda, all this anti-white stuff, it's like a religion to them. So he says he's got this 10-year plan, and he's not going to rush films that don't test well, which was what Batgirl looked like. The audience, here's the thing: for $100 million for them to just burn that movie was horrible. It must have looked cheap. It must have been poorly acted, directed, sets, everything was bad about that movie, that it would hurt the brand so significantly that they're willing to lose $100 million. That's an absolute bomb sort of movie. Because if you look at all the other movies that they've been releasing lately, like there's half those superhero movies that have come out over the past 5 to 10 years, they probably didn't need to come out. Like Black Widow, wouldn't you have, why didn't you just make Black Widow a good movie? Suicide Squad Part 2, it's like, why didn't you just make them good? Oh, we can't do that. We have to make them whatever they were trying to do with Black Widow. It's like, was it woke? It just wasn't really anything. It was, yes, we had women riding around on motorcycles. So why? Anyway, so no, it's not going to be less woke. He just wants the films to visually look good and fit into the same continuity. But you're going to see the same, when I specifically say, look for the blonde hair and who's the antagonist every time, it's like, yeah, once you see it, you friggin' see it, and you realize, oh, these aren't tinfoil hat people. It's all actually happening. And so I'm listening to these optimistic people, and even to be fair, even Sci-Fi for me and Yellow Flash, it's like they weren't that optimistic. I think they were hoping to be optimistic, like for some kind of return to normalcy. And even like I said, when I saw that 2004 Catwoman the other night. It was like the good guys were all POCs and the bad guys were all had their hair dyed blonde, so you know that they were Northern European. Like once you see it, it's so embarrassingly, painfully obvious when, like you dress the girl in white and she's got blonde, like her hair is dyed so blonde that it's like white hair. The symbolism could not be more apparent, and once you see it, it ruins everything. Because then you look at the people who are making the movie and you realize, oh, you're evil people. Like the depth of the evil, once you get down the rabbit hole and you see them for what they are, I don't know, maybe you'll start getting on social media and start making these kind of weird videos. Anyway, he just, like Zaslav, just wants the movies to work together. I 100% guarantee you're still going to see the absolute same continuity of what you've seen. Of every bad character is going to be, blonde hair, blue-eyed type of stuff. Someone of European descent or someone who's made up to look of you. It's so fucking dumb once you see it and you just can't unsee it. It's just, you don't want to take the blue pill. You don't want to go back to the Matrix. In fact, if anything, you kind of want to spread the message to other people. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys all next episode.